Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. We're not going to do 6 things we learned from Chelsea Newcastle. I've watched the game now twice. And quite frankly, I think in terms of analysing the performance, we could give red boxes to every player on the field. Raheem Sterling scores a lovely free kick. But what I want to talk about right now is the reality of Chelsea's situation. I come on here after good performances against Man City, the win against Spurs, we get excited. And then in the space of all of this, we've had a 4-1 win, a 4-4 draw, and a 4-1 defeat against 3 of the best performing teams in the Premier League this season. But the reality is so clear and so simple about where Chelsea are at right now. We are 10th in the Premier League, and quite frankly, there are 9 teams better than us, and 10 about the same or just a little bit worse. And I mean that when I say it. Chelsea have got signs that we could become something special. There are signs that with this young group of players that we have spent over £1 billion on, we could actually get somewhere. But in 2023, in November, the reality is all of the teams that are currently above us in the table, I actually think are better football teams than us. I think a lot of them are better well-run clubs than we are. A lot of them have got a lot better footballers than we do. And a lot of them, if we're going to talk about the process, which I will talk about the process today, a lot of them are further along in whatever phase of the club's history that process is in right now. So Chelsea are exactly where we deserve to be. We can't have great wins against Spurs, great performances against Man City, and then show up at St James's Park, a stadium known this season for having teams go there and get blown away. And let me tell you why teams go to Newcastle and get blown away. What Eddie Howe has done at Newcastle is an amazing job last season, making them difficult to break down. This year he's built upon that. They've got an attacking edge, they've got a flair, they've got speed, they've got drive, and even with 9 or 10 players out injured, they have still got the St James's Park crowd. And that is how Chelsea have lost this game. We have lost this game because in a cauldron, intense atmosphere, we've lost our heads. We've had our captain make 2 of the most stupid, silly decisions, which have led to 2 of the most pointless, stupid, silly yellow cards, which equates to a red, by the way, Reece, that you'll ever see in football. I think it's one of those where it's a bit soft, but at the same time, come on, mate. You've grown up seeing the way that refereeing's gone. You're going to get booked. The fans are going to be behind Newcastle. Decisions will go in their favour because that is just the nature of the energy of that ground. And then we concede 1 goal. Thiago Silva, a man who has had an absolutely sensational footballing career, basically retires himself in one afternoon by constantly falling over the ball, not actually kicking the ball. When you think about where Chelsea are at, you've got 2 players who, when you go to these places like St James's Park, where the atmosphere is going to be on top of you, you need your captain to show up, and you need your oldest player who's been around the block more times than most of us could have even imagined kicking a football. And both of them decide to have possibly their worst ever Chelsea games. 2 of the worst matches of both of their careers. That's just the reality of the situation. And Chelsea have also been relying on the brilliance of Cole Palmer recently. Been relying on the goals of Nicholas Jackson. Both of those 2 players had, in my opinion, their worst performances of the season. I want to say credit to Raheem Sterling. He scores a beautiful free kick. I thought Benoit Badiashile wasn't awful. Mark Cucurella went back to the Cucurella of last season. Sanchez just, well, again, there's not that much he can do about many of the goals, but even he was flopping around like a flipping penguin, Happy Feet 4 or whatever the next movie would be in that sequel of films. Overall, I'm embarrassed about what I saw in that game. To go 2-1 down, the game is looking as though it is moving towards Newcastle with every passing minute at the beginning of that second half. They score 1, and then we absolutely capitulate. We mentally capitulate. What we're doing with the balls at our feet is beyond schoolboy. I would have done better. You would have done better. My nan would have done better. We couldn't defend, positionally unaware, and Newcastle showed that they wanted it more. Chelsea seemed void of ideas once again. And I think that is why I don't even just want to sit here and go through player by player by player and say, well, that was bad, or that was bad, and this was bad, and that was bad. It's just overall right now, the collective mentality of this team just isn't there. And in the Premier League, when it's so competitive, you've got Aston Villa putting in a case to be in a title charge. You've got Tottenham currently bottling it, and we had to instigate that, but they had enough points at the start of the season to still be looking good. Arsenal are top of the league. City and Liverpool playing out a relatively drab game before this Chelsea one, but still right up there. United, Garnacho scoring goals that will go down in history books as one of the best you'll ever see. Overall, Chelsea right now, we just don't have any kind of sustainability at this football club. And I want to talk a little bit more about the aftermath of this game, because I think it's just as important as analysing just how poor every player basically was on that field. And I think what we saw after the game, where Pochettino is so clearly angry after this defeat, and he's saying, well, we were supposed to have a day off tomorrow. We're not going to be coming into train tomorrow. We're going to give the players a day off after a defeat like this. First of all, this is lunacy. Where have the standards gone at Chelsea Football Club, where going to Newcastle United, losing 4-1, is worthy of taking the day off the next day, to the point where our striker, who didn't show up, goes and starts having a little jolly in the Villarreal changing room post-match in Spain. The bloke's gone to Spain when he should have been figuring out how to finish. And that is potentially an unfair judgment of Jackson, because he wasn't the worst player on the pitch, and it's not fair to just pinpoint him. Nobody went in to train. But the problem I have here is that Pochettino comes out in his interview saying, yeah, I think tomorrow we're gonna drag the boys back in again. That's the right thing to do. But then for whatever reason, nobody went to training yesterday. So is that Pochettino just backtracking on his words, making it very difficult to actually come up with executive decisions to execute at the club? Or is it Pochettino isn't in charge and somebody above him has been like, oh, sorry, Maurizio, but we actually have a scheduled day off tomorrow, so the boys are doing this and Nicholas Jackson's going to Villarreal. Do you see the problem here? There's no consistency. And when you're a football club who wish to have these high standards, Chelsea are a club that have been used to winning things. And we are now accepting the mediocrity of not allowing the manager to be able to bring his players into training for a scheduled day off because we were absolutely shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, every single one of those players should have been there at Cobham on blooming Sunday morning at 8 in the morning doing flipping laps of the pitch before they start learning how to actually try and kick a ball together to be competitive against a team that have been out of form with half their players missing in the Premier League. Overall, I think this result, and I know I say this after every defeat, but it's building. The fact that we allow ourselves to get excited, the fact that we see positives and then we just see it all capitulate again and again and again. We saw that before the Brentford game, and then Brentford come to Stamford Bridge and batter us. And we see it in the Spurs game. We see it in the City game, and then we go to Newcastle and put in a performance where the word inept doesn't really cut it. It was shocking. We were shoddy all over the field. And looking forward to Brighton, they've been out of form. They won at the weekend. We've got Man United after that, who I saw them against Everton. Still not really that impressed, but at least they got players that can just do world-class things like Garnacho. And they keep winning football matches, which at this point, we can praise all we want about the previous displays leading up to this Newcastle game from Chelsea. But as soon as it got a bit tough at Newcastle, we capitulated. It was shocking. And then even at 3-1 down, our captain is just deciding that he just wants to let a couple of moments of madness, let the crowd get to him. The mentality stinks at Chelsea. It does, from the top to the bottom, to allow these standards to be okay. Yes, we know that nobody wants us to be losing. Nobody wants us to be putting in these bad performances. I don't for one second think it's part of Bowley's plan, part of Pochettino's plan. But if this is the case, then the standards of how we react need to be a bit more. There needs to be more standards. Period. I'm just a bit frustrated. This whole weekend was a bit of a sucker after that result, to be quite honest. But I had a good roast dinner yesterday. I hope you guys had a great weekend other than the football as well. And after all, I think you guys can tell from the way that I'm delivering these videos after a loss. It's kind of just got to a point where I get so excited because I get so low after every defeat or after every poor performance that I've just got a bit confused. So let's just sit with what we got. We're 10th in the league, and that's where we deserve to be. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Let me know your thoughts on the whole training, not training incident. It's pathetic. Get them out on that training pitch, 8 AM on a Sunday morning, because we're crap. End of story. Get better. Come on, you Blues.